G'day guys, welcome back to the Boundary Riders Podcast, episode 7 now. We just went through Gather Round, which was round 5. Absolutely wonderful week in my opinion. I think it went pretty well. Today we actually will be kind of reviewing Gather Round, but here in South Australia I think it went off without too much of a hitch, to be honest. I think it was basically everything all South Australians are asking for, and we've also got here Jack or Jackpot Junkies over on Instagram. What did you think of Gather Round?
I think it was a great concept. It was nailed pretty well by the South Australian government, and pretty good results in the end for most of the games. And obviously now we've got it until 2026, so pretty happy about that as well.
Yeah, so I think they announced it at the before the Collingwood St Kilda game, and practically 99% of the crowd were pretty excited about it. There were a few boos that I heard from a couple of supporters around, but I think that was just from Victorians who were having a whinge. No, I think it went very well. I think we'll just sort of review how it went. So basically, now that we've got it for the next 3 years, I think it's going to go even better.
Yeah.
In the next few years, there were a couple of things that I was a little bit disappointed about. One of them in particular, I think the entertainment that they had for the main acts of the entertainment, they had Peking Duck on Thursday night, and on Saturday night they had the Veronicas. I think the Veronicas was very good. I would almost give them a 10 out of 10. They went out on the... I don't know if it was televised on television when the games came out.
I think it was for a bit.
Oh, was it? Okay.
On it.
But basically, if you were there, it was pissing down rain on Saturday night, and they had a stand to stand on. What was it? Like a stage to stand on, and they had to pull that away because it was so wet they couldn't stand on it. I think it would have been they could have tripped over, so they had to do it on the grass. And those two came out and sung their songs, and they were very good. And I really liked the part when I don't know their names exactly, but one of them said, "Now everyone please stand for the national anthem," and they just sung their main song that the Veronicas sing. So I would have given them a 10 out of 10. Peking Duck, I think, were pretty good. The first couple of songs they sang, I didn't really hear a lot of it. I don't know if that was the audio around the ground or if it was them.
I think it was more because they had fireworks and all that. You couldn't really hear over all the...
Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of the first game, I think they were just trying to work out the kinks, because if you're at the game, you would have noticed a lot. If you looked at the scoreboard, you couldn't actually see the time on the scoreboard, and you couldn't see much of the scores to begin with because the scoreboard was so low on the big screens. You couldn't see it. But they did work it out throughout the week. The one problem I had with it was, if you're at the games, you would know they had the hype crew, and my God, that needs to be gone for next year. That was a 0 out of 10 for entertainment. They had these 6 dances or whatever, and look, they may have been pretty talented, but it was just so annoying that they started yelling out, "It's the hype crew," and then they'd have 6 people standing there dancing to the songs. It's I would rather you sit there, play the songs over the loudspeakers while we're waiting for the game.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just pre-game entertainment that they have at grounds in general is always a bit shit, but every single time they came out on the ground, the crowd basically went into a lull. They were like, ugh, they're out here again. And they were out there all day. So I get the AFL had to do something for it, but I felt like it was just a bit crappy. And I thought that was pretty lackluster entertainment. But the games, I think, went off really, really well. The games at Adelaide Oval, which were the ones we went to, all of them had hype around it. The crowd was absolutely amazing. Nothing that you'd never really experience it again, or you wouldn't experience it anywhere else, because you had different teams. Everyone was wearing their colours, there's their different teams. Even when you went to a Sunday game for the West Coast and Geelong, you saw people wearing Sydney gear, you saw people wearing Essendon gear, Port Adelaide. You would never see that happen again, and I don't think it would happen in any other state, how well it went off. What else was there? The games outside of Adelaide Oval, the 2 games at Norwood went, they were brilliant games. They went to the last minutes, really, the Fremantle game and GWS. The game at Adelaide Hills, it was a bit of a lackluster one because Brisbane just dominated, but the ground looked very nice. There was the one game on Saturday where it wasn't pissing down rain. But yeah, I think the entertainment that they had outside of the ground sounded like it went pretty well. We didn't really see much of it.
No, we were more interested in the actual football, but
there were a lot of stuff.
I can get the gimmicks that people would love to see.
Yeah, I think that honestly, if we had to round it all out, I think if you wanted to go, if anyone who was watching this was thinking they wanted to come to South Australia next year, now that it's South Australia, also like this gather round was only planned for 5 months ago.
Yeah.
So the way that the South Australian government, how South Australia got together and made it such a spectacle in 5 months, it's just amazing what they could do in a whole year. I think they could get big acts to come for every single night at Adelaide Oval. I'm surprised they didn't. I know they only did it for the South Australian teams, but Friday night when the Swans and Richmond played, there was a bit of a lull before the game started, and when the game did start, obviously, that brought a lot of hype towards it. But, yeah, I feel like they could have done some acts on those 2 nights as well, so they could obviously get some really good Australian acts for those sort of rounds.
Yeah.
And, yeah, if anyone is thinking of coming to gather round next year, and they saw it on television and thought it was a pretty good idea, but wanted to wonder, I don't know, how South Australians thought it was, I thought it was absolutely amazing. I would have given it probably a 9 out of 10. Like, considering it took so long, and like it was such a short notice. South Australia really got around it. All the crowd atmosphere was insane. Like, every single game, the Crows game, that was just a huge atmosphere to start off gather round. And the final game, St Kilda and Collingwood. Collingwood always gets a big crowd no matter where they are, and it was just a great atmosphere for every single game. So. I would have given it probably a 9 out of 10. Some of the entertainment stuff I wasn't too impressed by. The hype crew, that was just terrible. That's just, I don't know if that's just pre-game stuff in every ground. Like, I've been to a few games, we've been to a few games in Victoria, and it's always a bit meh. In Adelaide Oval, sometimes the pre-game entertainment's a bit freaking terrible. So, yeah, that was a bit trash, but the hype crew especially. But, the big acts of Peking Duck, I thought they were pretty good, and the Veronicas, I think, were absolutely... Like, they were insane, really. Considering they went out there in the pissing down rain, sat there and sang their songs, or, I don't know, well, sang their songs and did a brilliant job. And the whole crowd was standing there, like, you know, singing on with the songs in pissing down rain. I mean, I don't think you get that many in many other places.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I'd give it about a 9 out of 10 as well. Like, you got to think, like, we had people around us that were Carlton supporters from Perth. You had... people from everywhere come to the one state. It was nailed pretty well. Like,
yeah, I mean...
The entertainment was a bit... You can say people may have liked the hype crews and stuff. It was more... Yeah, that was more for the...
Yeah, I don't even know who would like that, to be honest. I think you're being a bit generous. I think they were fucking dreadful. But anyway, yeah. So, overall, I'd probably give it like a 9 out of 10. And I think next year it's just going to get better and better.
Yeah.
I think if you are planning to come over, I'd say definitely get on it, get on the ticket straight away, because I think this year it took a bit of time to sell out the tickets. Now that we've seen a whole year of how well South Australia can do with it, I think it's going to sell out pretty quickly. And honestly, I think I know it's something you won't see like happen. Like, you'll never see a bunch of people who not only like were, you know, supporting different teams, but they were all so happy to be there. I didn't see any sort of like fighting or any sort of stuff. I know there's some people, South Australia has a reputation for having like feral crowds. I didn't get that one bit. I thought from the Port game to the Richmond game to Collingwood, everyone was there celebrating for their team, and they were just happy to be there, happy to sit there and watch footy and be there for every single game. And plus, it was so like inexpensive. It was like $70 to get 6 games worth of tickets at Adelaide Oval.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you got the money to get flights over to South Australia, I'd say 100% do it. I think next year is going to be bigger and better. And South Australia does also have the reputation as like a pretty boring state, but I think we knocked it out of the park this weekend.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if anyone's willing to come to South Australia, I'd say 100% go. It was a great day it was a great weekend, and I think it's just going to get bigger and better. So, yeah, I'd say 100% get on it, guys. But, yeah, obviously with the games this week, I think we had a lot of games got quite close, maybe into the last quarter. Then a lot of games blew out a bit, but obviously the first game was the one that was like built up the most, was Adelaide versus Carlton. Carlton were undefeated going into it. The Crows were in good form.
Yeah.
And after the Crows just blitzed them in the first quarter.
Oh, like I said, that they have one of the most potent forward lines, but I'm not going to deny that because I tipped it as well. But yeah. I'm not going to deny it.
Well, I thought Carlton may have broken the duck they've had at Adelaide Oval, but sadly they didn't show up in the first quarter.
They never got off the plane.
They never got off the plane at Adelaide Oval, and that really cost them in the end. I mean, they stayed around that 20 to 30 point mark for a majority of the game after that first quarter blitz from the Crows, and eventually the Crows just ran away with it late.
Yeah, they broke them in the first quarter, and they stayed around, and then it was
that was basically gone.
It was gone.
Yeah, so the 3 votes, I gave 3 votes to Jordan Dawson. I think he was best on ground. I think he's definitely found his spot in the midfield now for the Crows. I never really saw him be looking like he could be a midfielder, but he does have the body type for it, and the good thing for him as well is the fact that yes, he'll be able to get clearances with his big body, but when he does get the ball and he has a little bit of time to use it, you know he's going to hit his target inside 50. So I think, even though I'm a little bit annoyed that Sydney lost him, I think they should have done a lot more to keep him, but nonetheless, I think the Crows have definitely got a good choice there. 2 votes I had to give to Rory Laird. I thought he had a really good game as well. He's been up and down so far this season, but he definitely shone on Thursday night. And the 1 vote I gave to Darcy Fogarty. I think he kicked 4 or 5 goals.
Yeah,
he dominated against Carlton. And Mitch McGovern was a late withdrawal in this game, and I think this is they definitely took advantage of this because
Plowman shouldn't even be in that team. He's that bad. Like, he can't defend, he can't kick, he can't do anything.
Yeah, he definitely wasted a lot of opportunities in that game.
They just dominated out of the midfield. It was just pretty much tap from De Koning, and it would just go to the Crows, Dawson, Laird in the forward line.
Yeah,
about 4 or 5 times without even Carlton touching him. It was kind of bad in that first quarter.
Yeah, and to be honest, probably their best midfielder for Carlton, which is a bit disappointing, was Sam Walsh. His first game back, and he was probably their best midfielder.
Yeah, and that's saying something. He was one of their best players.
Yeah, so it was very disappointing, I think, for a lot of Carlton fans as well. Like, we were sitting next to a couple, and they were enjoying the game as well, but they're very disappointed to see how Carlton didn't show up. So I was pretty disappointed to see that as well. But after that, we got to Fremantle versus Gold Coast. This is the first game at Norwood Oval, and this one turned out to be quite a bit of a spectacle towards the end of it. The Gold Coast had a lead for the majority of this game, but Fremantle caught back, and I mean they kicked 100 points, which I don't think many people would have expected. They're pretty. By no means do I think Fremantle back, but they did well, and they caught back in the second half to get their second win of the season. And I mean, being 2-2 at the moment, it doesn't look like it's in a terrible spot. I think there's definitely a good 12 to 13 teams now who could definitely make finals.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about that after our tips. We'll talk about because I mean we're through a quarter through the season now, so I think we can kind of make a little bit of predictions about the season so far. But yeah, so with the 3 votes, I gave the 3 votes to Callum Sarong. He looks like he's definitely launched out of this season. They definitely did need someone to stand up because Andy McGrath looked like he was being the lone hand last year. But Caleb Sarong looks like he stood up this year, so I gave him the 3 votes. 2 votes I gave to Michael Walters. I think he stood up a couple of weeks this season. 2 of the 4 weeks this season, he's actually played really good footy. So if he can find his form and kick some goals, I think Fremantle do have a chance of making finals, but they have got to start finding goals from other places. And the 1 vote I gave to Noah Anderson. He was definitely by far the Gold Coast best player. And he wasn't by far. I think David Swallow had a pretty good game. He kicked 3 goals. But I think Noah Anderson needs to have some more players going with him. Took Miller has probably started quite poor, not poorly, but he's definitely been middle of the range this season. I think he just needs to lift a little bit. And he needs a lot of people to come with him because Stuart Dew's job, I think it was one of the journalists, Damien Barrett or something, said this week that the next month will decide if he keeps his job.
I don't think he does, sadly, but they don't have any depth in the midfield. Once the rotations go through without Rao, Miller, and Noah Anderson, they don't have anyone. Like Flanders was doing it during the preseason. I have not seen him do it once this season, in actual home and away season, to go in midfield. He hasn't done it once. It doesn't look like it. And
Jack Lukosius looks like he may be coming on, but again, he needs to be. I think he still needs to be a high forward wingman. I think that's his role, but it's just I don't think he gets enough of the ball to really.
He needs to be leave. He he's lethal with the 10 to 15 that he gets, but he needs to get 15. He needs to get closer to 20 for Gold Coast to go to that next level of finals.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people were expecting them to maybe make finals this year or at least be very close. And currently they're 17th on the ladder, and only being beaten by a VFL, only being held up from 18th by a team who's basically rolling out a VFL team every week in Hawthorn. So I think Stuart Dew, they won't give it that. He'll probably keep his job till mid-year at the very least, because the AFL coaches don't usually get sacked like maybe an English soccer coach can get fired in 6 weeks.
2 weeks, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that Stuart Dew will get fired soon, but I think in about 2 months' time, Gold Coast will be looking for a new coach. Yeah. After that, we get to Richmond versus Sydney. Sydney did play very, very well in this game, and if anyone looked at the Instagram and saw the fact that the Victorian media had the gall to put the headline of Papley kicked 6 goals against injury-riddled Richmond. Get fucked. Sydney lost over 1,000 games worth of experience in that game against Richmond. I think they lined up the youngest team from Gather Round. Richmond should have won this game on paper. Sydney came out to make a statement and say, we are not going to fall over. And they did just that. And I got to give kudos to Sydney, because I did tip them, but I wouldn't have been surprised if Richmond came out and flogged them, to be honest, because Sydney had so many defenders out. They were playing Callum Mills in the back half. I did say this before the game to my brother, that Sydney are going to basically have to play Callum Mills in the back line to compete tall. And the only person who stood up in that game was Jack Rewald. He kicked 4 goals and kept Richmond in the game. Richmond performed for 1 quarter in this game, and they did that last week against the week before against the Bulldogs. And the only reason why they stayed in the Bulldogs game was because of that quarter, and the only reason why they were even close in the Sydney game was because of that 1 quarter they played. I think Richmond, you said this as well, I don't think Richmond will make finals.
No, I don't think they will. Like, you look at...
They've won 1 game this season.
They've won 1 game, and again, like the Victorian media, they think there's nothing wrong with what they're doing. Have you seen their game plan, their game style? It was really noticeable if you look at the actual 3 quarters the 3 or 4 quarters they played against Sydney. It just didn't look
dreadful footy.
It was dreadful.
They were using the ball. They were using the ball fucking terrible.
Yeah,
going forward.
And the way they're disciplined.
Shea Bolton giving away that 50-metre penalty in that third quarter or early in the fourth.
It was the third.
They were just starting to come back in this game. They're only a goal down at 3/4 time. And Shea Bolton gives away a free kick, which was obviously there.
Yeah, and then he shoves him.
Then shoved one of the Swans player on the ground, gave away a 50-metre penalty. Richmond's discipline is terrible, and they don't have much of a game plan. Yes, they have injuries, but what team doesn't?
Yeah.
Sydney were missing 3 of their tall defenders. They were missing Buddy Franklin, and then they lost Joel Amartey early in the game. St Kilda have not been playing a forward all season, a forward line, and they have won their first 4 games, as well as Essendon, who have not played they don't have their 50-goal forward from last year, Peter Wright, and they've won 4 of their first 5 games. You can't sit there and have a sook about we've got injuries, when every single club in the AFL has to deal with it, and they have not dealt with it at all. And Collingwood, for example, as well, they're probably the best performing team at the moment. They're not even playing with a ruckman.
Yeah, exactly.
And they didn't even have Mason Cox or Daniel McStay for the majority of the game against St Kilda yesterday, because we're recording this on a Monday, and they still were able to pull out a win.
Yeah, so
they can't sit there and blame injuries and have a sook about it, Richmond, when they're playing terrible football at the moment. They're going to go up against Melbourne next week, and I can't see them beating Melbourne. So they're going to be going for the first 6 rounds of the season with 1 win. I'm sorry, but Richmond are in a hole. But anyway, sorry. We had to talk about that because I think Richmond have been the most disappointing team of the season so far now. Them, Fremantle, and the Gold Coast, I think, have been the most disappointing teams of the season so far. But anyway, nonetheless, someone who did play brilliantly on the weekend was Tom Papley. He kicked 6 goals, career high.
In a half.
He kicked 6 goals in a half. He had a good first half as well. He set up 2 goals by himself. So
yeah,
I know there's been points in his career when he has looked quite selfish, but I think he's definitely started to get that out of his game. And he kicked 6 goals and
he had 25 disposals in that game as well.
I think he was one of the few performers in that third quarter when Richmond were coming, when he actually kind of stemmed the flow and kept Sydney in this game. But nonetheless, he got my 3 votes, obviously. 6 goals, 25 touches. Great game from him. Chad Warner, I did give the 2 votes. I think, and we were talking to a Carlton fan next to us at the Swans Richmond game, who was saying if Chad Warner can just convert those goals when he's running forward, he's going to be an A grader. He's going to win himself a Brownlow. He did have a couple of opportunities in that game to convert, and he just messed them up. He missed
three shots that were pretty simple for it.
Yeah,
if he wants to make the next step for an A grader, he should have nailed him. But
and he kicked 1 goal in the end, and it was a free kick inside the goal square or something. Yeah. So I still think he had a brilliant game. And the 1 vote I did give to one shining light from the game from Richmond, which was Liam Baker. Yeah. He was one who shone in that third quarter with Jack Riewoldt. I forgot to mention Liam Baker, but he did play quite well in this game. And I think he's actually really came on for Richmond. I think he's almost, and I know this could be a big call, but I think he could be a captain in waiting, Liam Baker. He's quite young. I think he'll have to get a little bit of discipline out of his, he'll have to hold his discipline as well in some moments, because he does sometimes give away free kicks, but I think Liam Baker could be their next captain, and I think he has played quite well this season so far. But after that, we get to Brisbane versus North Melbourne. This game, I actually thought North Melbourne had a bit of a chance, but they didn't show up in this game.
No way. They started well, but it was...
Yeah, well, they kicked 5 of the first 6 goals of the game, and they only kicked... and then the Lions just kicked away.
The Lions actually were like, we actually have to play here. It was done by 3/4 time. But let's be honest, what was this? They were down by only 20 points, 28 points during the third quarter. North Melbourne.
Yeah,
they got flogged in the end by nearly 80 points.
Yeah.
So it turned quickly in that game.
So Brisbane did win this by 75 points. 3 votes I gave to Joe Danaher. The last 2 weeks he has really stood up.
Yeah.
The fact that he's gone into the ruck a bit more as well. I think that's his role. Going to the ruck, he can play as that tall, as a 4th midfielder almost. I think he played really well in this game. The 2 votes I gave to Lachie Neale. He's had a pretty quiet start to the year, but he had a good game against North Melbourne. And the 1 vote I gave to Eric Hipwood. He played quite well. I think he's going to have to start. If Brisbane are going to go in deep in finals, both him, Danaher, are going to have to play some blistering football.
Yeah, I think also the underrated one was also Darcy Fort playing. It structures them up a bit better, that when Big O goes off, they bring Danaher into the ruck. It makes Darcy Fort play forward, and it at least gives one of the tall defenders for the other team someone to man up on, instead of this other player, or come off and rest.
Yeah, and plus Darcy Fort's a very good kick goal too.
Well,
so
it wasn't in that game, but it will...
well, usually it's a good kick goal.
Yeah, well...
But after that, we get to probably the biggest upset of the round by far, which was...
100% it was an upset.
Essendon beating Melbourne by 27 points, and it may have been only 27 points, but they dominated this game, Essendon.
Yeah. I
think that in the wet, kicking 15 goals in the wet, this was a bit of a slugfest for a lot of the game. But Essendon just... I would not have picked this at the start of the season, Essendon being 4-1. They have had a couple of easy wins, but the fact that they were able to beat Melbourne, I think that's a huge win for them. Top player, in my opinion, was Zach Merritt. He has been suspended for a week, which I think is going to be a huge loss on Anzac Day. I think that may have...
if he doesn't get it overturned, so based this year, he will stay. It will stay a week, so he won't play Anzac Day, which is disappointing because
I think Essendon. I think Anzac Day, this is the first time since 2000 that both these teams are in the top 4. So, I mean, I think every single fan that's not a fan of Collingwood or Essendon would have been wanting to have the best teams out there for this game. And it's a bit disappointing that Zach Merritt I don't think will be there. But in this game, he was absolutely outstanding. He got my 3 votes. The 2 votes I gave to Darcy Parish. He was really good in the midfield as well. And the 1 vote, even though he kind of petered off late in the second half, Sam Draper in that first half was outstanding. This guy needs to be the mascot towards the AFL. If they want to promote this game to the wider public, to even if they want to go to the world, I don't know if they can, but if they could go to the world, this guy needs to be the face of the game. He was outstanding in this game. He's a character. He gets the mullet out. He can move. He can kick. He's just an outstanding player, Sam Draper. And if he can find that career form, if he can keep a good level of form, he's gonna be a top player in a couple of years. Sam Draper.
Yeah.
He got my one vote, and I think he played brilliantly. So on Saturday night, this was a slugfest.
Yeah, it was dreadful weather.
Yeah.
We had to sit in that weather, so don't care what anyone says. We were in that rain the entire night.
Yeah, we sat in that rain the entire night, and Port were able to storm home in the final quarter against the Dogs, who were at time in that third quarter were definitely coming, and they kicked the first goal of the last quarter to take a pretty substantial lead. Yeah. It was like 9 points, and in this weather, it was fucking dreadful. Yeah. But Port Adelaide did stand up, and for the second week in a row, they were able to catch back in the last quarter to win again. And I don't know if it's about time to trust Port Adelaide. It's a bit early, but the fact that they are now through 3-2, 3-2 now. I think they're doing very well. My best player for Port Adelaide, and it was a bit hard for Port Adelaide because they had such a combined group that were very good. Yeah. So it was very hard to pick an outstanding one. But there was one that shone the most, and I think you know who it is. Yeah. Zach Butters.
It had to be he
kicked the sealer at the end of the game.
He was clean in that third and fourth quarter when Port Adelaide had to be clean.
Well, he was the only one in the game who could find clean hands a lot of the time. Zach Butters was brilliant in this game. He got my 3 votes, and I think he got the 10 coaches' votes in this game too. Pretty sure. 2 votes I gave to Tim English. He played brilliantly in the ruck. I think he's all-Australian form at the moment. AFL Fantasy Watcher or not, I think he's done brilliantly in the ruck this season. He's great on the ground. He's great in the air. I think that if the Bulldogs don't I think he's probably the best ruckman in the competition at the moment.
Yeah.
So I think the Bulldogs will just have to get better in the midfield and play more defensively at times as well. But he's just done very well for the Bulldogs so far. And the 1 vote I gave to Cody Waitman?
Yes.
Cody Waitman, that's his name. Yeah. He kicked 4 goals on return, first game of the season. He played quite well as well, and he was the only one who kept the Bulldogs in the game at stages because Port Adelaide threatened to take it away, but he kicked 4 of the 8 goals for the Bulldogs, so they have been missing that attackive person up forward who is not tall, and considering Norton couldn't really get into the game.
He had one disposal in that last quarter, which didn't help him.
Yeah, and Ugal Hagan couldn't really get into the game. Roy Lobb was out. I mean, I didn't even notice.
He didn't even know. You only noticed him because of the hairstyle that he has.
Yeah.
That's the only way that you knew he was on the field. And playing Bontempelli forward screwed them.
I think they may have lost them. I think
desperately.
That was dumb play. Because in the first half, he was their best player. Yeah. In the second half, he did kick a goal in the last quarter, but other than that, no one really knew. No. I couldn't see him half the time because they chucked him out of there, and they didn't have that big body in the midfield. Which in the wet, you've got to have that guy who can stand over the ball, and he's very clean, obviously, Bontempelli. So I think that was a stupid decision, but a great win from Port Adelaide in the end. After that, we got to Geelong versus West Coast. I think everyone this was the one game of the round where everyone kind of knew this one's going to be a bit of a drubbing. Yeah. And Geelong, to be honest, they did kick. West Coast kicked the first 2 goals of this game, and then Geelong kicked 11 in a row, and the game was over. But after that, the fact is, West Coast kicked actually 1 more goal than Geelong. But because of that 11-goal blitz that the Geelong have had, they won this game. And in the end, I did give the 3 votes to Mark Blitzars. He's had a pretty slow start to the year, but he did play quite well, playing as that second ruck midfielder throughout this game. 2 votes I gave to Jeremy Cameron. I think he's in career best form, and he's probably up there in the Brownlow votes at the moment. I don't know if he'll be able to hold it because I think if he's going to be able to hold it, he's going to have to kick 80, 90 goals this year. So he's averaging 4 a game, just nearly 4.5 a game. So that's about 85, 90 goals a year this year. If he can get that, I think he's a chance at the Brownlow. But I don't know. It's going to be hard for him. He does score a lot of goals in games when Geelong dominate. So if they are able to bring back this form this year, he can definitely get it 80, 90 goals. And the 1 vote I gave to Tom Stewart. He played really well in the back line, as he usually does. Pretty reliable back there. I gave him the 1 vote in the end.
Yeah.
After that, we got to probably, maybe not game of the round, but it was definitely a couple of moments in that last quarter. Did you watch the final 2-minute highlights this game? The fact that Toby Green kicked it into the forward 50 and Harry Himmelberg just leaped over the pack and took an absolute beautiful specky, went back and kicked the goal too, which was more important because he had 1 goal 3 to that point. And the fact that the Giants had 10 goals 17.
Yeah, they should have really won this easily, but...
Yeah, but in the end, they did win it by 2 points, and I needed that because that was my certainty pick, and I've missed all 4 certainty picks so far.
Congratulations, you got one.
I've got one, so we're on a bit of a streak now. But anyway, nonetheless, the votes, 3 votes they gave to Jai Newcomb. He played really well in this game. Had probably by far their best midfielder. Had a lot of clearances. Had over 30 touches. He was definitely Hawks' standout player. 2 votes I gave to Toby Green. He set up that final goal. He kicked 3 or 4 in this game. And I think if the Giants... I can't remember how old he is. I think he'd be up there now, though. He'd be in his 30s, I think. But yeah, I think he needs... If he can last a few more years, he needs... I think he's going to be a huge loss whenever he does retire because I think he is one of the better hybrid forwards in the game. And the 1 vote I gave to James Worpel. He had a really good first couple of games, but he kind of petered off until this week. I think the loss of Will Day gave him more midfield time.
Yeah.
And James Worpel definitely took advantage of that, so I gave him the 1 vote. And finally, we get to the Collingwood versus St Kilda game. Now, this game was won by Collingwood. Basically, other than the fact that the St Kilda kicked 13 points in the space of a minute, really in the last quarter, I think Collingwood not dominated this game, but they definitely had the win for the majority of it. They were definitely the better team.
They dominated. If you're looking at this, the scoreboard and you didn't watch the game, you'd think, oh, well, it was a close game. St Kilda look good this season. They don't. Well, they don't look as good as what people think. They look as what they've been for 15 years. They overpossess the ball. They don't want to kick forward and take territory besides Mason Wood. Yeah. And when they get a bit of pressure on them, they're frantic. They don't know what to do with it. They turn over too many times.
Yeah,
that cost them.
Now I'm going to change my votes quickly here because well, not change them, but there will be a different one change here in my votes. If you go to Instagram, you won't see it unless you saw it earlier. This is I'm going to change it because I just realised this, but. The 3 votes I did give to Nick Dacos. He had 40 touches, career high. He was brilliant in this game.
Yeah.
In the first half, there were a couple of times when the game was very sloppy. Both teams were pretty sloppy with it, but he was always clean. He barely turned... I think he did turn it over once, and the whole crowd was shocked when he turned it over, and I yelled out, he's human. But Nick Dacos is in brilliant form at the moment for Collingwood, and he got my 3 votes. The 2 votes I'm going to give to Rowan Marshall. He was their best player by far for the Saints.
He had to be, really. With no ruck... Well, not really a ruckman for Collingwood.
Yeah, Billy Frampton, though, did perform well on the ruck for them. But, Rowan Marshall got my 2 votes. I think he was really good in the midfield. He did start off a bit slow, but definitely came in throughout the next 3 quarters. In the 1 vote, I did have Brad Crouch, but I'm going to change that and give it to Cal Wilkie. The fact... Callum Wilkie kept them in this game. The way he was out the back, just every single time he got the ball, he was clean. He didn't drop the mark when he had to go back with the flight and take it. His disposal was clean for St Kilda when everyone else was being sloppy with it. Cal Wilkie, I'm going to give the 1 vote in this game. He was brilliant. He's all reliable, and I am very... I mean, I don't know why he's not the captain of the club. I know Jack Steele is the captain, but... I think Callum Wilkie is the leader of this team, and this fact is, I think he's probably the most underrated player in the comp.
Yeah, I think he's all-Australian defender, probably be back pocket as it stands now, but he's in the all-Australian form.
Yeah, and as long as he doesn't get injured, I think he's definitely makes the all-Australian team. Cal Wilkie.
And seriously, Dacos, the amount of times he just find the ball was amazing. Seriously, if you're going to watch Collingwood, Dacos is bloody phenomenal live. He is phenomenal.
Yeah, the fact that he just gets around the ball, he just finds the ball so easily. And St Kilda, I think, it was definitely a misstep, the fact that they didn't go to him.
No.
I think against Brisbane last week, they did find a way to get under his skin a little bit. and it did help to an extent. He still had a good game against Brisbane, but he didn't have the influence as he did against St Kilda. Against St Kilda, he had so much influence on this game. And I think he had about 30 odd touches against Brisbane as well, but it wasn't much. He wasn't influential because they were able to get under his skin. He wasn't able to get the easy handball. He had to work for it. This game, he did have to work for it, but he did. He got a lot of easy touches that he was able to then turn into a lot more influence on this game. But now let's get into the tips for this week. Now this is on a Monday, so if we do make a change, we will mention it. But nonetheless, we do have our tips out now. Now, obviously, this is the Anzac round coming up as well. So we're going in from Gather Round to Anzac round. We've got a bunch of huge weeks coming through. We just had the Easter round a couple of weeks beforehand.
Yeah.
So, big pile-up of events coming for the AFL the last few weeks. But Friday night starts with a bit of a blunder.
Well, at the start of the season, it made me look pretty good. It's the elimination final from last year, so...
I think, to be fair, that they're trying to set up the games for the end of the round because of Anzac Day.
Yeah.
Anzac Day is on Tuesday this year. But Friday night is Fremantle versus the Bulldogs at Optus Stadium. This one is going to be an interesting game because Fremantle, obviously in Perth, you have to give them a bit of a chance. I have tipped Fremantle in this game, but the Bulldogs, it'll be interesting how they do. They're not that bad in Perth, but the last two times they've played in Perth in finals, they had a lead against
they had two huge leads and they stuffed it up both times. So.
Yeah, I'm going to be picking Fremantle in this game.
I've went the Bulldogs. I just think you've got a bit more trust in them, and I think if you want to be blunt, they should drop Rory Lobb, but I don't think they will. But I think the Bulldogs should win.
Yeah, okay. And Saturday afternoon we have Port Adelaide versus West Coast. I don't think we have to spend too much time on this. Port Adelaide should win and win comfortably. Yeah. West Coast were very poor against Geelong. In that 11-goal blitz, they weren't around. And to be honest, the rest of the game, Geelong just stopped. So I'm going to be giving Port Adelaide this win pretty comfortably. Yeah,
Port Adelaide should win this 40+. They need some percentage, so this is a good week to get it against the Eagles.
After that, we get to GWS versus Brisbane. This is in Sydney, so Brisbane aren't the best away from home. But I think they should be able to win this pretty comfortably against the Giants. It looks like Tom Green will be out this week if he has been given a one-match suspension. I think they will appeal it, but I don't think we'll get away with it. So without Tom Green, probably they're being their best midfielder this year, I think Brisbane will win this one pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I think Brisbane, I think it'll be a bit closer than what people think, but I think Brisbane should win. They've got Danaher back in form, Cameron's back in form. Just pretty easy for them, I think. Pretty easy to pick Brisbane. Might be closer than what people think, but yeah, Brisbane win.
Saturday night, we get to the grand final rematch. Geelong versus Sydney. Now, this is down in Geelong. Now, this is the reason, I don't know. To be honest, I think every grand final replay, to be honest, I think they should always be at the MCG round 1 on Friday night after the traditional game. I think that'd be a good idea, but nonetheless, I think this game should be playing at the MCG anyway. But I think the reason why this was supposed to be scheduled for GMHBA is because the new stand was supposed to be built. But I think they've had a bunch of problems with the building of the stand, so they have to rip it down again. So, nonetheless, this is Geelong's first game of the year down in the GMHBA. They've had 2 soft wins, but Sydney haven't exactly had wins against top teams. They've beaten Hawthorn, Gold Coast, and Richmond, all who are currently in the bottom 4. So this is a big game for both clubs. Sydney do have a good record down in Geelong, so I am actually going to be picking Sydney because I think Sydney can actually get on top. If they can get back Tom McCartan this week to take Tom Hawkins, I think that Robbie Fox, he actually had a pretty good game against Jeremy Cameron for 2.5 quarters of the grand final. He was actually probably one of Sydney's best in the game, Robbie Fox. So if he can stop Jeremy Cameron, I think we'll go a long way to winning this game. And if Sydney can bring the sort of pressure that they brought against Richmond, I think they have a good chance. So I'm picking Sydney.
I've went Sydney as well. I think they had 2 soft wins against Geelong have 2 soft wins. So they're going to come with a bit of pressure of the pressure of Sydney from the last couple of weeks. I think they get Tom McCartan back. That's what people are saying. They might get one of Dane Rampey may come back in. That'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I think and Buddy will probably come back in as well. So I think they should be able to win. They'll get him early, I think, with that pressure that they haven't had Geelong in the last couple of weeks. So they should be able to capitalise on that.
Yeah. Alright, so on Sunday we go to Hawthorn versus Adelaide. This is down in Tassie, so Hawthorn do have a decent record down there. So you do give them a bit of a chance, but the fact that the Crows are playing so well at the moment and their forward line is so potent, I think the Crows will win this one.
Yeah, I don't think you ever got much to talk about this. The Crows win. They're playing too good at the moment, and like we said before, Dawson being in the midfield has helped the Laird out, and yeah, they just look too potent at the moment, the forward line.
After that, we get to one of the games of the round, Carlton versus St Kilda, both top 4 at the moment. Both teams lose last week, though. So this is a big game for both clubs. Carlton had a very poor game against the Crows. St Kilda did play okay, but I think they were just off the mark in points. I think if Tim Membry doesn't come back this week, St Kilda are ridiculous.
Yeah, that cost them as well against Collingwood. Not playing an experienced forward didn't help.
Yeah, I think that was a stupid decision. It looks like Cameron Meady will be out for a while, though, because of his suspension.
Yeah,
so I think it's going to be a straight swap for him. But I'm going to be picking Carlton in this game because I think that they can get on top in the midfield and could win this game in the forward line. So I'm going to be picking Carlton, but I think this will be a pretty close one.
Yeah, I went Carlton as well. I think they've got a bit more trust, and the amount of scrutiny they'll get this week from their midfield in that first quarter will be pretty heavy. So they'll respond, and they should take care of St Kilda.
So on the last game on Sunday, we get to the Gold Coast versus North Melbourne. This is a huge game for both clubs, to be honest. If Gold Coast win this game, it takes a little bit of heat off of Stuart Dew. If North Melbourne win this game, I think Stuart Dew won't last after the buys. I think this will be a huge game. I'm going to be picking the Gold Coast because it's at home, but the North Melbourne, I think, are every chance in this game.
Yeah. And I went North Melbourne. I think that Clarkson will go to his players and not maybe rip them a new one, but tell them that harden up. They need a response. They need to respond, and I think Clarkson will get the best out of them. Zerha wasn't really in that game. Even when they started well, Zerha was out of it against Brisbane. So I think they'll respond, and they'll get their 3rd win of the season and be close to the top 8, which no one really predicted. But
yeah. All right. So now we get to the Monday. This is Anzac Day Eve game, the traditional game, Melbourne versus Richmond. This one, I think, could be a bit of a drubbing, honestly. I think Melbourne will want to respond after a poor performance against Essendon. And I think if Richmond don't show up for the first half of this game, Richmond need to pull out a 4-quarter performance. And they haven't been able to do that pretty much all year. Even against the Crows when they won, the Crows still had a good first half of this game. A good half of the game. So for me, I'm going to be picking Melbourne, and I think they're going to win this, I think, pretty well.
Yeah, I've went Melbourne as well for pretty much the exact same reasons. With Lynch still out, I'm going with my certainty pick for this one as well this week for Melbourne. They look pretty easily, really.
You can win this one pretty easily.
Yeah, certainly.
Finally, on Tuesday, this is Anzac Day, traditional game, Collingwood versus Essendon. This is game of the round, in my opinion. Both teams, top of the table. I'm going to be picking Collingwood, but and that's probably... I mean, I think Collingwood will win, even if Zach Merritt was in this team. And I think now that Zach Merritt's out, most likely, and I just think Collingwood will be a little bit more quality over the ball here, and I think they'll just win this game. I think it'll be a pretty close one, but I think Collingwood will win.
Yeah, I think Collingwood will win. I think it's just it'll be a closer game till 3/4 time, and then maybe the Collingwood will just run over them. Maybe we'll get a pretty classic like we did with Zaharakis years ago, but
those games always. I mean, last year when these two teams played later in the season, Jamie Elliott kicked a goal on the siren.
Yeah, so
love to see that.
But. Yeah, it might be one of those real close games. You might get 90,000, 95,000 for this game with both teams going really well. But I think Collingwood do get the win.
Now, I haven't actually made my certainty pick yet, and I don't know. I mean, this is a hard week for a certainty pick because most of the teams that lost are playing against teams that lost. I think I'm going to put my certainty pick on Carlton to beat St Kilda.
Mm.
And I know that may be a bit weird because St Kilda are currently top. I just think that Carlton are going to be a little bit better in the forward line to win this game. So, even though this is at Etihad and St Kilda are very good at Etihad, I think Carlton will want to respond and win this game. So that's my certainty pick for this week. And, let's just get into the fantasy stuff quickly. So, AFL Fantasy had a pretty good week. I got 2,121. Current rank overall is 1,189, so I think that's pretty decent. Got a little bit poor captaincy choice, to be honest. I should have picked Dacos or Marshall, which a lot of people did do. I picked Tom Green. I mean, he got 100, but... 200, but there was times he should have got a whole lot more. Didn't really have too many disappointing ones this week, other than McRae, which is actually one of my trades. And I did have to get Lockie Weller in the end for Will Day because obviously he was suspended. So that was my two disappointing ones. And I mean, Jinby was a bit disappointing, but he got subbed out. I think they kind of pinned it this week that they were going to rest him in this game, and I think they were like halfway through the third quarter when the game was gone. They were like, all right, let's just sub him out. But nonetheless, my trades this week, I got rid of Jackson McRae and I got Caleb Sarong. I think he's definitely one of the most informed players this year. He got 125 against the Gold Coast, and I'll be interested to see how well he does against the Bulldogs this week. That's my trade for there. And then my second trade, I got rid of Davey. I just don't know if he's going to come. I mean, I don't know if he'll be back this week or not, but I just had to get rid of one of my rookies, and all my other rookies that I have are still increasing in price a little bit. So I got rid of him, and I got Matt Roberts from the Sydney Swans. I think that he'll actually play some games this year. He played quite well in that game against Richmond when he played a full game. All the other games he's played so far this year have been as a sub. So that's why his price is so low. But his first game of the year that he's played outside of the sub, he gets 64. And because he's such a good ball user, I think Sydney will try to get it into his hands. And yeah, that was my pick there. So now I currently have 240 in my salary. And next week I'll be getting rid of another rookie. And I should be able to get rid of Cam McKenzie next week and then get back Will Day. So that will be what I'll do. And I think now is kind of the time, just before the buys. Now the first rookies you got for the year are starting to like lower down their price. So it's time to swap them out and get out swap out premiums and stuff. So yeah, at the moment, I'm going to have Nick Dacos as the captain just because it is on Tuesday and I can obviously have a loophole vice-captain. At the moment, I think this probably will change. I'm not too confident on it, but I'm going to put Harry Sheasel as my vice-captain.
Why not?
It's insane to think about that as the kid to get it, but I mean...
In 6 weeks of football to put him as the vice.
Yeah, but I mean... He scored 96 last week, and that's his lowest score in his career so far.
It's crazy how good he's going.
Yeah, so I'm gonna hold it there. Considering he's playing against the Gold Coast, I think he's a good chance to get a good score. But yeah, that's for me. You want to just go through your?
Yeah, I think it was a pretty good week last week. I'm currently at 3,666, so starting to get up there. Surprising actually at the moment. Last week was pretty poor, but the rookies that I had to put in my field, like Jimby, McVee for the Demons, but I had my captain on Rowan Marshall. I think it was obvious with not really a ruckman for Collingwood. It started again. He was only picked by 2%, so I got lucky again with my captain. Stocker's that one that's starting to annoy me now. But my trades, I went with. I got rid of Jimby. He's not going to make any more money, and I got the Seamus Mitchell for Hawthorn. He did pretty well on debut. Had like 10 disposals to half time or something like that. So he started well, and I got rid of Cam McKenzie for Hawthorn, and I got Tom Stewart, Mr. Reliable as a defender, and that will get me enough to get back Will Day next week. And at the moment, I'm probably going to get rid of Stocker to get back Will Day, because even though McGrath's been annoying me all season, I'm going to get McGrath back. Keep McGrath. I think he's.
I think keeping a player who's he's
got
a
runs
potential.
He's got runs on the board.
He's got potential to get 90, 100 McGrath.
And it's just annoying that that Tom Green will pretty much get a week for. He he challenges it, I don't think he gets it overturned. So, but because it's only 1 week, I'll play him. Well, I'll just put him on my bench for the week. So it's annoying, but. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I've got my VC on English. I think says well, when it writes itself really. English has been the most dominant ruckman in the game, and pretty much doing it all by himself. And I went Dacos to start off Anzac Day. At the moment, that might change. Probably not though. With the way he's going at the moment, he's just it's pretty much the ball on a string. Really, how it's going. But yeah, that's how my season's been going. 2,100 to finish, so did pretty well again.
Yep, well that's a pretty good week. Yeah guys, it's just about it. So this week, I think I'll probably stream the Carlton St Kilda game on Sunday. The game is throughout Friday. I don't think I'll stream the Friday. Maybe the Friday night game between Fremantle and the Bulldogs, but I'm definitely going to be streaming Carlton versus St Kilda. Yeah, that's pretty much it from us today. Very good gather round. If you guys are thinking of coming to South Australia next year, I'd highly recommend it. I think just giving them a year, basically double the amount of time to plan it, I think it's going to be bigger and better. But yeah, thanks for watching today. Round 6 is up next. Round 6 is up next. Anzac Day coming. Huge couple of games coming. And yeah, thanks for watching today. But that's all from us. So we'll catch you all later.
See you later, guys.